Recommendation that the regular meeting be suspended and the committee of the whole meeting be convened. Moved by Councillor Randhawa, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, I'd like to call tonight's committee of the whole meeting to order. Recommendation that the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting of October 26, 2015 be adopted as circulated. Okay, moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, before we take some questions for the public, I'll quickly read a statement from the chair. For those of you present this evening and for those watching via television, let me explain that a committee of the whole meeting is a committee that consists of all members of council. This meeting allows council members to deal with issues in greater detail, but is less formal than a regular council meeting. During this meeting, issues are not formally adopted, but recommendations may be made at the next regular council meeting. At that time, the recommendations of the previous committee of the whole meeting will be adopted and acted upon. Some key points to remember when making your presentations are: remember, council meetings are televised, and it is very important to introduce yourself and, if applicable, name of the organization that you are representing and speak directly into the microphone in a clear voice. When presenting, please address any comments or questions to the chair of the meeting. Keep your presentation brief. 5 minutes would be ideal, as council has several presentations on their agenda. Once you have completed your presentation, please ensure you summarize any requests or concerns. The chair will then ask council members if they have any questions. Remember, there will be no decisions made at this meeting on any requests or concerns you have made. Lastly, requests will be referred to staff for review, report, and recommendation to council. Council meetings are very full. We would appreciate your consideration of your time allotment. And at that moment, I'll call the first presenter who would like to come speak into the mic regarding any issues of concern in the community.
Good evening. My name's Lothar. Hang on a sec. My name is Lothar Shiza. I got a few things. First of all, Mr. Mayor, do you recall our meeting on the 28th? Because the last time I was here, just before council meeting, I asked you a question, and you didn't seem to recall anything we talked about. I'm talking specifically 444.
You can speak to what you were talking about.
Say again?
You can speak to what you're referring to.
I'm asking you to recall our meeting on the 28th in regards to what we discussed about 444.
I don't recall exactly the details that you were mentioning, so why don't you, for the audience here, mention what we were discussing, I guess.
Okay. I'm disappointed. I thought, you would have made a mental note of what we discussed, because it's very important. What I tried to get across to you is that I've been stymied with engineering so far, so I had no choice to come to you. And as this has been quite a while now, this is almost end of October, and I'm not getting anywhere. What I'm looking for is somebody with technical expertise to look at the north end of 444 and be able to flesh out what I have in my head as a model for the plant there. At the top end, there's a little valley, and there's actually an old barge landing facility there. The purpose of this whole thing is the people Prince Rupert own that property. It's not council per se, it's the people. And one thing I want to make really sure about is that if this goes ahead, that property would not be sold and would be leased to the company so that Prince Rupert retains that ownership. Not a foreign entity owns land in this neck of the woods. The other reason why this can't go where they proposed is because there's a 4-mile diameter blast zone if something happens with their proposed location, which would take out a good chunk of Seal Cove and residential people all along there. The other consideration to understand about this is I believe they want 4 trains, maybe 6 trains. That's a hell of a racket. We were looking at each train, just compressor alone, 120 decibels. 125 is threshold pain for humans. Now, to move on to something else, has anybody, hands up, anybody has gone through the environmental assessment for Patronus? One. Okay. There's a glaring, to me, I found it, there's a glaring discrepancy in that report. It's got nothing to do with the pile driving and putting the causeway through and all that sort of stuff and the loading facility. It's got nothing to do with that. It's once the plant starts operation. I'd be happy to sit down with any of you here and show you this. I tried to do this before the election. I got nowhere. I'm just astounded, and the fact what I discovered applies to the environmental assessment that was passed by the BC government. That is null and void as far as I'm concerned, because they have no clue what's missing. And part and parcel with that, BP or BG gas, which is now Shell, is a no-go. And Nixon is also a no-go. The only one that can go forward is this 444, the Exxon and Imperial partnership. Just a little hint, if any of these plants were to go, like I just mentioned, that are a no-go, it would totally, we would have an extinction of the salmon. I'd be pleased to, to talk to anybody here about it. I try to get global BC TV interested in this thing. I have no response back. I tried corralling Nathan Collins at the college just before he got in to talk to the kids. His response, I don't have time to sit down with you at the library and to go through this thing right now. And I go, when do you have, after the election or what, I'm at a loss because, we've had 3 public meetings at the college where people came in from a long ways away and gave presentations. First one was David Hughes. The second one was a grandson of Dr. David Suzuki. And the last one here, I've got it in my coat, was another fellow who was a PhD something, blah, 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 and he was on Sunday night out there. the whole council here is totally naive of what was presented on each one of these things. The last one here, I got his business card, and I asked him, your presentations, is that available on the web? He says yes. So I will supply that with you to you, so you can familiarize yourself to. There's one other thing you need to do. You Google Bill 30, Andrew Weaver, all in one shot. You'll have, when you find that, you'll have a transcript, and at the bottom you can actually hear the man give his presentation in the legislature. He blew that taxation on LNG right to smithereens. And it just, like the Liberal government we have, it just like water off a duck. They don't seem to understand these things. But there's some of us, we're looking at the way things are going and going, wait a minute, this is ridiculous. It's insanity. It's like, a free-for-all. It's like when the Klondike, somebody, gold. It's about the same thing here. We've got a number of people in this town that I found that my experience being out there, they're just for the money. They want to try to make some money. The First Nations are occupying Lilu, and I like to see a stop to. I like to see them be able to go back home to their loved ones. Not having to protect that property over there, because they know for a fact that if this goes through, they'll lose their salmon. And here's the thing. The Chimchan voted. They rejected a $1.5 billion offer. Well, it's not only them, but all the way up Skeena, the Bulkley Valley. If the fish are screwed up here, they won't get any fish up there either. That's how bad this is how dramatic the impact of what I've discovered. It affects a lot of people. And Nickelback's got a song, "Standing on the Edge of Revolution." I think the First Nations here are at that stage right now. So I don't know.
Do you have any final comments? Because I'm going to have to cut you off here.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, Walter.
I've got enough for tonight.
Thank you.
Oh, you do know how to get a hold of me.
Any other members of the public who'd like to speak? You can come forward now. Okay, then calling the last time. Okay, seeing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to reconvene the regular council meeting. Okay, moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay. Item 2, recommendation that the agenda for the regular council meeting of October 26, 2015 be adopted with the amendment to add Pacific Northwest LNG's update to petitions and delegations. Unfortunately, it was just a typo error, and they were meant to be on the agenda today. Okay, moved by Councillor Renhower, seconded by Councillor Cunningham. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 3A, recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting of October 5th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 3B, recommendation that the minutes of the regular council meeting of October 5th, 2015 be adopted. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, welcome to our Pacific Northwest LNG.
Thank you, Your Worship, and want to thank you for yourself and for the council for inviting us to speak here today. We wanted to give an update on the project, and our slides are coming up now.
Could you go closer to your mic, please?
Okay, is that better? Okay.
When you can hear yourself.
Lothar, please.
I'm sorry, but
Yeah, we'll let them do their presentation, though. Thank you.
I'm sorry, but if you can hear yourself speak while you're speaking into the mic, then we can hear you.
Just please let them do their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. So, for in the interest of time, all I want to highlight here is that in June this year, our shareholders, who are also our customers, approved to move forward on a conditional final investment decision. And there are two conditions outstanding, one of which has been resolved, and the last outstanding condition is that we have the SEER federal regulatory approval for our project. So that we're still working on that, but everything else is in place and ready to go in terms of moving forward to the next stage of our project construction. We continue to work with area First Nations constructively, and in particular we're also interfacing with the Tsimshian Environmental Stewardship Authority in a constructive manner, areas of interest, environmental stewardship, and of course cumulative effects as well. Just a reminder on our facility design. Much of the initial design for our facility is now complete. We continue to optimize the design of the marine facility, the marine portion of the terminal. I just as just a correction for the gentleman earlier today, and I think some people still have a misconception that there is no causeway in the marine facilities. It is a construction that will allow water to move underneath and around the facility. And it's not on Florabank. We have a marine facility designed to be adjacent to Florabank. And we've also removed the major dredge that was part of our original design. So I just want to remind everybody of those significant changes. And the next slide shows some of the major mitigations that we have put in place. And one of the major mitigations also was the suspension bridge that traverses across just the very top end of Florabank. So it really minimizes the marine infrastructure adjacent to Florabank. So we understand the importance of Florabank and the surrounding marine environment, and we understand that through the feedback from the community and through the regulatory process. So from the community and from First Nations. So we've been conducting for several months now extensive fish and fish habitat monitoring program, and it's probably some of the most extensive and detailed work that's been conducted in the area for quite some time. So we're going to be using those results to further inform our design of a facility and the construction processes to make sure that there's minimum interaction with the marine habitat and environment, and to make sure that there's an optimum, for example, some of the things like construction windows, etc. And the results of those fish studies and surveys will become public as well. So I think some of you know that as we've been working with the federal regulator, we've been asked to go back and have a significant understanding of sediment movement around Florabank. So we've done this 3 times now, and every time we've done further and more detailed levels of modelling, we've gained more knowledge. But the three times we've done the modelling, we found the same results, is that there is no significant impact on the marine environment. There is no significant impact on Florabank. There's very minimal disturbance. So this slide shows the inputs that were taken into the modelling. And it's taken quite some time, and it's been a high level of detail and lots of data. But you take the local data and put that into the modelling, and we've also included data that's been provided by First Nations experts as well, and that's been incorporated into the sediment modelling around our proposed marine infrastructure. So the next slide, if we can bring it up. Is it working? So the next slide is frozen, but hopefully we can bring it up, and hopefully we can see. And it's just an example of some of the data and some of the outputs for the modeling. And each of the little tiny points, it's hard to see on the TV, I think, but all the little points on the screen are inputs, pieces of data, if you like, that are modeled. And this particular modeling shows the velocity of the water around a marine infrastructure. So some of the points to make here is that little black line, which again would be difficult to see on the TV, but you could see in the room here. That's the edge of flora banks. So that's where you transfer from intertidal to subtidal. It's not a direct line if you stand on flora bank and Agnew bank, but that shows that that's the difference between the two areas. And then eelgrass, for example, would be towards the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. So to give you an idea that any disturbance of a marine infrastructure, is very small in terms of the range that it could be in the ranges that you see naturally across flora bank. And then we found that we've got similar visual examples that show the sediment disturbance from the marine infrastructure is actually very minimal. It's in a matter of millimeters, and it's actually way less than flora bank actually changes year on year over time due to tides, currents, freshet, etc. Okay, next slide. So I think you're also aware, anybody in the community is aware, that we're doing further investigative work for the marine facilities to optimize the design and to prepare for the next stage of construction. And this is the third time that we've been conducting the marine geotechnical work as well. And some of you will have seen the vessels out there, the barges, taking borehole samples, for example. So want to make sure everybody is aware we are not doing any work on flora bank whatsoever for the marine geotech. There are some environmental monitors who sit with the vessels 24/7 to make sure that we're not disturbing, for example, eelgrass, and we're doing everything as per the procedures and as per the permits. And I encourage anybody to check in on the local notices to mariners to learn about the safety zones around the vessels in case they're changing over time. So something else I wanted to flag in the community is that one of the routes to full-time positions in operations of our facility would be to have power engineering qualifications. It's not the only route, but it's one of the routes. And one of the courses that's been developed locally in the Northwest Community College, along with ourselves, is to help people get ready so that they can start the route towards a level 4 power engineering and then level 3. But this is to help people get ready and have those prerequisites so they can actually get onto the course for level 4 power engineering. So if you don't have grade 12 high school, there are some things that you can do in this preparatory course to get ready so that you can enter onto that course. And then we will also be sponsoring and supporting people through those qualifications. So that it is one of the routes that you can get to obtain operating jobs.
You just mentioned dates.
Oh, sorry. This does, you can't quite see it on the TV, but this is starting in November. So if anybody's interested in this, I do recommend that they contact the Northwest Community College. It'll be run in both Terrace and Prince Rupert. And this is just very quickly describes the elements of training for operations jobs in the facility. And we would start recruiting as early as a year into construction, because there is the technical qualifications that are required that we can support people through. And even if you have those technical qualifications, there will be some learning, in-classroom learning, specifically on LNG facilities. And then you'd have to go and work for a little while on a live LNG facility before you came back and commissioned this facility alongside the construction contractor. So to give you an idea of the training for operations jobs, some of them are longer processes, especially in the technical field, but we're designing the programs to support people all the way through that. So just on the next steps of the project, we're going to continue the fish habitat studies. We'll be continuing those right through construction and through into operations, and be sharing that data with several tables, and it will become public as well. We're working with the regulators right now to conclude the study reports and just making sure that they satisfy the regulators' requirements before they can be accepted and go to the next stages of the SEER process. And we'll be completing over the next few months the Investigative Works program as well. And I just want to remind people that we don't usually we wouldn't be awarding the EPC contract, which is the construction contract, until we move forward to the next stage, which is construction. Okay, and I want to thank everybody for their attention, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
I just have a quick question, just for the public's sake. Is it possible you can outline any sort of agreements that you have made with Lac Wallams at the moment, working with the sampling process? My understanding there's a little bit of a protocol agreement signed. Can you maybe give that information to the public at all?
So, microphone's still on. We have consulted with all area First Nations for the investigative works process. And so there are varying levels of conversation that we had with different First Nations, depending on what their levels of interest were. And so, and that was required even before the Prince Rupert Port Authority would issue their permits. So as a normal course of business, when we do anything new, we engage with local area First Nations, as well as the Prince Rupert Port Authority requiring that. So we did have these conversations, and there was a discussion around investigative works with all area First Nations.
Okay. Other questions from council?
Thanks very much for your presentation. I'm just wondering more about, I understand your outstanding condition is the conclusion of the environmental assessment process. I'm wondering if you guys can update us a bit more on kind of what your timelines are looking at, because I know it's obviously with more requests for information it pushes the project back a little bit, but I'm wondering if you can give us a bit more of a firm idea of what your updated timelines are on that in that regard.
So it's difficult for us to say, because it's ultimately up to the regulator as to when they're satisfied with our information and before they can move to the next stage. We have just over 100 days left on the regulatory clock, and there is a process where if they accept our submission and they're ready to complete what they call a draft report, which is the draft certificate, if you like, or the draft recommendations, which would usually include draft conditions, that would have to go out for consultation, and then the minister would have to make their decision or make a further recommendation. So that timeline, whilst it's officially 100 days, it is up to the regulator as to what further requirements might be. So I think we're coming to the end of clarifying with the regulator what's required for our last information request submission. And we're working very closely with them to get that done fairly quickly, hopefully. But at the end of the day, it's up to the regulator what else they might need as they move through the process.
Councillor Kinney?
Thank you for your presentation. Tess, how many people would be employed when and if it goes through, dear, permanently?
So the exact number depends on our contracting strategies. So very approximately, it's about 300 people who would be full-time employed under our payroll. And then we could very easily name about another 300 positions that would be full-time positions created from crews that would like full-time support of the facility, but they may not be under our payroll. So examples of that, quite often scaffolding contracts are contracted out, marine services, there are things like that where there'll be full-time jobs created because we're there and they're full-time servicing the facility, but they may not be on our payroll. So very roughly 600 positions, depending on the contracting strategy.
Thanks, Tess.
Councillor Ranhawa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Related to Councillor Kenny, are you hoping to hire from locally or from out of town people?
So for operations, we're not creating a fly-in, fly-out facility. Our intention is to employ as many local people as possible because we would prefer to have local people run the facility. When you initially start a facility, you do need to intersperse your workforce with some experienced people because it is a brand new facility and you do want people with some experience under their belt to help supervise and bring and help further training of like new employees. But as your intention then is to, over time, they either become permanent in the community themselves or they would move away and slowly as people bring up their skill set. So, but the intention is to have, the facility operations to be run by local people. For construction, there will be a requirement that's larger than the local workforce can supply, but again, it's in our interest and we'd much prefer to have local people employed first. So we'd look locally first and then go wider and wider afield. It just makes business sense as well.
Other questions?
I guess I just have a question. How far are you along on your modeling? Have you got your modeling submitted to SIA? Your last set of modeling?
So we've completed the last set of modeling, and what we're in the process of doing right now is just checking with SIA that we've interpreted what they've asked from us correctly, and we're sort of, just checking in. And we are starting to sort of informally consult with a few sort of local interested parties who were interested in the results. And we're doing that process before we, if you like, formally submit our submission in. So we're just making sure it's comprehensive and then that they don't have to come back and ask for more again.
Right, because I read the DFO's rejection of your last modeling effort, and I was wondering if you had complied with all of DFO's suggestions to do a different modeling regime.
So we believe we have. One of the things that took a bit of time was making sure we had a terms of reference that everybody agreed with, because the modeling can be so sophisticated that it ends up being like 260 days to do with a year's worth of data. So you have to agree the resolution and what is important in the terms of reference in order for it to be very detailed but have the right representation, if you like, in the modeling. So we took quite a bit of time to make sure that everybody was on board with the terms of reference so that we could minimize the back and forth, if you like, and further questions.
Any final questions? Okay, thank you very much for your guys' time today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to reports and recommendations. Item 6A. Report from the city planner regarding the application for development variance permit at 198 Prince Rupert Boulevard. Absolutely. Okay. Welcome back.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item on the agenda is application for development variance permit at 198 Prince Rupert Boulevard. Mr. Mayor, this was before the council for final consideration at the last meeting. Council sought some clarifications. That said, the report that was on your agenda on October 5th is still applicable. And just very quickly, the subject of the development variance permit is for the location at the corner of Prince Rupert Boulevard and Galt Crescent. It's highlighted, and the variance is for enclosing the existing deck, which would then require a reduction of the setback to 2.1 meters. The questions that were asked were as follows. The first question was traffic safety at the intersection of, I opened up a wrong one. Technical difficulties. So the first question was about traffic safety, as I noted just a second ago. I asked the engineering department for the report. The report is attached as attachment number 2 and includes this picture. The report concludes that at the intersection itself, the addition, which would be approximately where my cursor is right now, will not produce any adverse traffic effects. However, the report does note that these ornamental trees should be removed. The second question was about the coverage, site coverage. The total area of the lot is 449 square meters. The maximum site coverage in R2 is 50% or 224.5 square meters. Total building coverage as it exists now is 153 square meters, and the total value of the addition, which was in stage of being covered with plastic at the time of the last meeting, is approximately 5 meters, which produces total coverage of 34%. The last question was the extent of the addition. And this picture is probably the best one to show that the extent of the addition would be the extent of the balcony. Essentially, the addition would follow this roof line here, and it will be covered here with the existing roof line. In addition to this information, staff also received one more letter which comments on the proposed variant, and it is it's included in attachment number 4. In conclusion, Mr. Mayor, staff has provided all necessary information for council's final consideration of this application.
Thank you. Questions from council? Councilor Cunningham?
Okay, that picture right there, the extension that they put on...
Oh, your microphone, sorry.
That extension they've put on the bottom there now goes out past the corner of the house. If you look at that one right there, on the left-hand side. So my problem with this is he is only going to be doing the extension above it to the actual corner of the house and not to the corner of his extension there?
I specifically asked the building inspector to bring in the applicant, and he has confirmed that the extension will be to this corner of house, and this will remain as a deck.
Seems strange he'd bring that balcony out to square off with his front balcony and fill in underneath. But I don't know.
Councilor Niche?
I actually went and had a look at this property, and the one thing that I had raised concern with you before was, was it normal practice to have a 12-foot setback on corner lots on both sides, and you said that that's kind of a normal way of doing a corner lot. In this situation, his lower part of his house has already been extended in the past, and typically, things that have been built in the past have been grandfathered. So his ask is to add on to the top, and the only complaints that I have seen, were traffic related, which by adding on the top of this is not going to affect traffic. And the other issue was from the fellow next door, which I believe is in house here, was a complaint about view. I don't know what the view would be from that particular side of the house. I didn't see any concerns with it, but if the fellow would like to speak more about the loss of view, maybe we could get that information. But from the perspective of looking at it from the side, I mean, it's the side of the other neighbor's house. I didn't see where that neighbor would be losing any sort of view other than of the high school. That's just my my observations when I looked at the site.
Councillor Cunningham?
I, too, spent some time on that corner. From a traffic point of view, I see no problems. The trees are definitely a problem. That ornamental fence, if you come up to that corner real quickly, as I noted some people did and went around that corner, and I also noted a lot of people went right through the stop sign, and their views would be restricted in that point. The actual addition is, like Councillor Neese says, isn't going to be affecting a view, and I don't know why the school board would be worried about the crosswalks, because they are in no way inhibited whatsoever. I just have concerns about what this person's going to do in the future. I just find it a little difficult that he seems to be doing a lot of stuff there and haphazard, and I'm just a little concerned.
Other comments from council?
It's probably the most watched corner of Prince Rupert. But I also went to look at the corner, and I looked at it again just on my way here, and I just when I looked at it, says what the site coverage is 34%. So it didn't look to me like that was was even close to the maximum lot coverage. It's not like you're at 46% or something. I do have a problem with the front of the building, but I guess if somebody wants to make the front of their house look like that, then that's what they can do. So I can't see any real reason. I looked and looked, and I can't see any real reason why not to. I couldn't think of any real reason why not to give them the variance for the property. I think that the staff has done the traffic, which I was most worried about, the traffic study. I had a look at the site coverage at only 34%. When we allow 50%, so that's less, and then also on the amount of it's just coinciding with the deck of the existing porch. Now, I guess whether somebody comes before another council and asks to increase the top so that the side of the house is covered too, yeah. Then that would that be another variance, or would that just be an architect's drawing through the building department?
Based on this conversation here, that would require another variance permit just to assure that the council that this conversation is closed. So when we are looking at buildings, we're looking at the part of the building that's under the roof, and we were looking at decks in a different context. So, when you put a roof on a deck, that changes the context of our looking at the regulations. So, from that perspective, should at any time anyone want to extend it to this area here, that would be requiring another development variance permit, which should be noted in a file, just out of the interest. To extend the trusses to this extent to the side would be something that would be probably cost prohibitive within a context of the idea of this addition. This is addition that would use the existing building structure rather than adding to it.
Councillor Cunningham.
Okay, his front porch or deck that was once a porch or deck there on the front. No, go right to the front. See that little white area? Go straight up now. That's a deck there, if you look at the front. And he's since covered it in and put lattice work there. Not the deck on the side, the one on the front. You'd have to go to the other view down below, and you can see it on the bottom right hand or the top there. Now, would he have to get a variance or anything to put windows in there?
We were not looking at the existing building, which is not encroaching onto the. So that part of the building is totally within the front yard setbacks. You know, so electing to enclose the deck and put lattice work is one thing. To make it a living space, yes, he would have to go to the building inspector to make it a living space.
And would he have to get a variance for that, or just because it's part of the structure, he wouldn't have to worry?
At that stage, he is within the front property setback, so it would not require a development variance permit.
Okay, any other questions or comments from council? Okay, the recommendation is that the development variance permit application number DP 1519 for 198 Prince Rupert Boulevard proceeds to the final consideration. Moved by Councillor Niche, second by Councillor Moreau. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item 6B, a report from the city planner regarding the application for development variance permit 937 Ambrose Avenue.
This application is for the property located on Ambrose, more specifically 937 Ambrose. It is highlighted on the overhead drawing. This is the second application. Very briefly, second time before the council. Very briefly, the application is for a zero lot line in the rear of the property. Prior to this, for development variance permit, the applicant has secured an encroachment agreement for the council to extend the proposed or to rebuild the existing structure, which is a porch, to the extent as shown on the drawing. Notifications were delivered immediately after the last meeting. In fact, mail and delivered to all residents and owners within a 150-foot radius immediately following the meeting. As of the date of this report, we received one general inquiry via email and one over-the-counter inquiry. Both of those are included in attachment number 4. In conclusion, as of the date of this report, we didn't receive any objections, and I've checked the records. Since then, we haven't received any more comments that would prevent approval of this application.
Okay. Any questions from council? Okay, recommendation that the development variance permit application number DP 1521 for 937 Ambrose Avenue proceed to final consideration. Moved by Councillor Moreau, second by Councillor Randhawa. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Item 6C, report from City Planner regarding the application for development variance permit 935 6th Avenue East. Yep.
This application is for the property located at 935 6th Avenue East. The application is included in attachment number 1 and also provides pictures. This is the photograph of the garage. If you look on the overhead, this is the garage here, and that is the point of this development variance permit. There are a couple of other pictures that really just show the context of the backyard. The last pictures also shows the garage from a different angle. The application is to, number one, legitimize the existing encroachment onto the rear property, into rear yard setback. At the time of preparing this report, I didn't have a clear indication. However, I met with the applicant after the report was finished, and in your reports you do not have this note. But as at 15/10/23, which was last Thursday, was also the intent of this variance is to extend the garage in an area that's been circled. To show you on the aerial, on the context drawing. Essentially, it would include covering the area that's next to the garage, or as is shown in these photographs, the area that's now occupied by this vehicle and the boat, approximately. The applicant requires approval to proceed to public notification process.
Okay. Questions from Councillor Niche?
There was some information that was brought up before, and I really think that this issue needs to be tabled until we have all the correct information on this, because the drawings and the pictures conflict each other, and I think that information needs to be brought to us before we continue on with this. The proposed garage in the one drawing that you had just brought up, where it had a notation written on it, where it said proposed garage being built. Well, there already is a secondary garage that's been built on this property, and I would like to see a survey of this property before we deal with this any further. And I would like to table the motion. I would like to put that forward.
Okay. Motion's been tabled, or motion to table and seconded.
No, I wasn't seconding.
Well, Councillor Kinney seconded it. And Mr. Mandrick, when that occurs, it's just tabled, correct? Right, so without discussion. Right. So at the moment, the motion's been tabled, and we will, to the next meeting, we'll get that information, whether or not there's an existing garage. Go ahead.
Just for clarification, there is a building that's here now?
Yes, that right there where that garage door is.
Okay.
That wasn't there 6 months ago.
Okay. I will take pictures, and I will ask for the site certificate. Is that what you're asking for? Site certificate?
Use your mic.
I'm looking at the different information that you're showing us. Is if you look at the overhead and you say where a proposed garage is supposed to be built, and you look at that picture, it's already built. So what I'm saying is we need to get a survey of this property with the existing buildings that are there and all the information that's been put forward, permits, everything, to make sure that this is legitimately done correctly and we deal with this properly. And I do not want to go further with this until we have all the correct information in front of us.
Okay, I'll allow a comment from Councillor Cunningham here.
Okay, you've got the house, the dwelling, right, and then you've got the first garage there. Right. Now, what's that? That's the other garage right there?
No, that's just some materials that are sitting there. This aerial photograph probably dates to at least 5 to 10 years ago.
Okay.
The aerial photograph. Probably the more recent photograph is this, and I was out there on a site. I didn't notice it, but I will make sure, and I will ask for a site. The only true representation of what's on the site is a site survey, and so we will ask applicant to get a site survey, which may take longer than the next meeting.
Okay. And we'll end the discussion there, and let's get that information to council. Thank you. Thank you very much. We'll wait for Councillor Thorkelson to return. Okay, moving on to item 6D, report from the Director of Operations regarding the 3rd Avenue Sidewalk Rehabilitation Award. And perhaps Mr. Ms. Bombin, you could speak to that.
Thank you. So the engineering department is now awarded the 3rd Avenue Sidewalk Rehabilitation Project to Prince Rupert Wood and Steel. Work has already begun. The 3rd Avenue Sidewalk Rehabilitation Project is a 5-year project that will see all of the 3rd Avenue sidewalks from McBride Street to 8th Street replaced. The goal of this project is to replace all of the sidewalks in the downtown corridor in order to satisfy the objective of making Prince Rupert an enjoyable place to live in and visit.
Thank you. And I'll just quickly add to that this is part of Council's Rebuild Rupert strategy to address some of our infrastructure needs. Also a part of a process of rebuilding the downtown core. We have phase 1 of Fraser Street that's just being completed at the moment, which next year there'll be a new phase, and then having these sidewalks be completed and hopefully eventually have the road on 3rd Avenue replaced as well, so that we can have a more revitalized downtown core, make it better for businesses to do business down there. People have commented, well, why not the other sidewalks? We are also addressing a variety of other infrastructure needs and other sidewalks, other roads in the community. But we felt that it was a precedent to get the downtown core reorganized for the future, and which is why we're moving forward with that. So the recommendation is that Mayor and Council receive this report for information purposes. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Cunningham. Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Item 6E, report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the August 2015 monthly financial report.
The August 2015 monthly financial report sees no significant variances from what was reported in July. Revenues are similar to this time period last year, and expenditures are on track for this time period. As far as capital purchases and capital works are concerned, many of the capital projects and purchases were underway in August. Many of the invoices from these projects will be reflected in the September variance report.
Any questions? Okay, recommendation that Council receive this report for information purposes. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Niche. All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, number 8A. Mr. Mandrick, could you maybe outline what the request is from the Prince Rupert Special Events Society? And if I find it first, I will... Okay, I got it here. Yeah, I'll say it. The Prince Rupert Special Events Society has suggested that we present the civic awards at the Canada Day celebrations rather than what we have traditionally done, which is here in council chambers. And they feel that that would basically bring the community event much at another level. And we could present the awards there, and with the public, we have quite a large attendance on Canada Day there. That is a request coming from us to us, and we can have a discussion as council regarding that request. We could motion if you'd like.
I'll make a motion that we do on July the 1st.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Kinney and second by Councillor Moreau to accept the recommendation. Councillor Thorkelson?
I was just wondering if somebody can remind me, when do we, I know we have done it very unevenly, when do we accept the submissions for these awards?
Mr. Mandrick, I believe we are doing that around November-ish, correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. Starting in November. Sorry.
So, thank you. I was just wondering if we do it if we might want to look at a different timing if we're not going to present them till July, right? So that was my only thought was if we're going to present in July and we're making a decision November, that's kind of a long time between the decision and the recommendation. So I was thinking that maybe we should, if we're going to. If we're in agreement with this suggestion, that we look at delaying the award
nomination period.
Nomination period to later.
Just to add to that, I think giving us more time to deal with the financial budget in November might be better, and do this in June or May after the budget is done. Then that would work quite well to get into July for presentation time for sure.
Councillor Cunningham?
That just means that the 2015 presentations will be done in 2016. There will be no presentations for 2015 then, is what?
I believe that's how it works anyways. February, I believe we did the 2014 ones. This is when we came into council. So it's the same thing as long, we're just delaying a couple more months. I don't know if we have a bylaw on that or anything. So we could probably just, at our own discretion, move that timing. Okay. Which I agree with. I do agree with this whole notion. I think we do it here, but it's nice to have the whole community there, and they're in front of the entire community. And then, what exactly are they being recognized for? I think that would it's a great, and plus it adds more, a new layer to the Canada Day celebrations. So, I'm definitely in favor of this motion. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, number 9, resolutions from closed meeting. Mr. Mandrick?
There was a resolution from a closed meeting where Council made the following resolution. Moved by Councillor Niche and seconded by Councillor Renhawa that Mayor and Council approve the recommendation of the Director of Operations and award the Seal Cove Retaining Wall project to Broadwater Industries Limited. And that was carried unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on to item 10A. Report from the Chief Financial Officer regarding the permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3381, 2015 for 2016 to 19 tax years. And we had a question at the last meeting regarding the parking lots, and perhaps you can give us a clarification.
Sure. At the last meeting, the bylaw was actually tabled until I could address this question since I was not here. So I'll just give the audience a full spectrum of events. So at the September 1st, 2015 council meeting, I presented a report that showed the tax exemptions at the current rate of tiered exemptions in effect, which were under the current bylaw, and the tax exemption value if all properties were given 100% exemption. The total tax exemption, if at 100%, is estimated at $332,000. At the current tiered exemptions, it would be approximately $316,000. This is a difference of $16,000. Of this value, the amount exempted for church parking lots is $1,694. Over the next 4 years, which is what the bylaw has been drafted as, or it's been given 3 readings rather, it's $6,776 estimated as the total additional exemption over 4 years. This report at that time requested direction from Council on the levels of exemption for those that applied. We were instructed to produce a bylaw that ran for 4 years and at 100% for all applicants. At the September 14th, 2015 Council meeting, I presented the bylaw as directed, which received 3 readings. At that point, we began the legislated 2-week advertisement period of the amounts and recipients of the permissive tax exemptions that were being contemplated for adoption. The bylaw must be adopted by October 31st for any of the exemptions to take effect.
Okay, and just a quick question for myself. So that's $16,000 a year, or $16,000 for the whole 4 years?
It's estimated $16,000 per year extra.
Okay. Councillor Kinney, then Councillor Thorkelson. Oh, you're making the motion? Okay, well, quickly then.
That $16,000 for everything over the 4 years, not just for the parking lots.
That's correct. For all of the properties, it's an additional $16,000. If you take away the tiered exemptions as they are operating right now, if you give 100% exemption to all the applicants, it's $16,000 extra every year for the next 4 years.
Which includes the parking lots.
It includes all the parking lots, yes.
So the cost of the parking lots over the 4 years is $4,000.
The additional cost of the parking lots is $6,000. That's giving it an extra 40% exemption, because right now they're getting 60% exemption.
Right.
So for the next 4 years, it will cost an additional, it's an opportunity cost to us of $6,776. Estimated, of course, because assessed values do change.
So of the 16,000, 6,000 is on parking lots.
An additional $6,000 is parking lots. Yes, it's inclusive in the $16,000. But no, sorry, $1,694 is for 1 year. Of the 4 years, if you go 16,000 times 4, approximately $7,000 would be parking lots, additional to the parking lots.
Okay. Councillor Kinney, I believe, is making the motion, recommended motion that Council adopts the 2016-2019 permissive property tax exemption bylaw number 3381/2015. Seconded by Councillor Moreau. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? Motion's carried. Okay, moving on to item 12A, Housing Committee. I've been communicating to some of our service groups, and we haven't had a chance to call the meeting that we've been wanting to call, and I believe that we're going to be able to get that in the next couple of weeks. People gone and those type of things. So we haven't made much progress based on the same conversation we had at the last council meeting. However, our city staff planning department has taken all the info lots that we have that we went on our city bus tour with, and have created a internal report at the moment to council to assess which properties could be used for what in terms of housing or other uses, and so we'll be assessing those as well. And that's I think where we're at the moment for that. And if Councillor Thorkelson, you'd like to add anything to that?
Well, I'd just like to bring forward some of the discussions that have been occurring in the community that I've been aware of. The Mission of the Good Shepherd is trying to find some partners to partner and create some either supportive housing, but they're actually looking at the spectrum of housing all the way from affordable housing for families, all the way down through to just overnight beds for people who are in need of in-town people. I think they were looking at not so much transient population, but in-town requirements by people who are homeless for short periods of time. They've run into the problem that everybody else has, is in trying to find some kind of funding to purchase a building and renovate a building for that purpose. And so they are, like everybody else who butts up against that, is trying to find some kind of funding. They were told by some of the people that we're approaching for funding that really the only way to do it is to have cross-subsidization or internal subsidization, so you charge a lot for some rooms in order to subsidize, charging less for other rooms, and so that's the internal cross-subsidization, which appears to me to be perhaps the fastest way to get for our community to actually access some affordable housing in our community, and that is to see if we could talk to the developers that are coming to town, or put some bylaw changes in. I don't know, how we could do it. If it's too late to do it with the developers that are in town already, or if they're at such a stage that we can do it still. But it's looking at kind of trying to pass some legislation by law that says that they have to either build themselves or have part of their building that they're proposing to be low cost or subsidized housing. So in Vancouver, for example, in Yaletown, almost all of the newer apartment blocks have commercial on the lower floor, and then going up have subsidized housing on one side and high rent housing on the other side. So they actually have things called poor doors, and they're in Vancouver. They're actually some concerns over having a door for the poor people and a door for the wealthy people, but right now we don't even have a door for the poor people. So I'm wondering if that's something that we need to think about, and we need to have some discussion as whether we want to see developers that are coming to town with new developments that are proposed on the high-end side, and see if they are amenable, or whether we want to pass legislation to say that when you come to town for new high-end development, you have to also create some low-end development. So it's something to think about. But that's here's a group that wants to do something, and they've been told basically that the only that they can't act unless they can find a philanthropist organization that is just willing to donate cash. That the best they can do is try to do internal cross-subsidization, which I guess is fairly chancy.
Councillor Cunningham?
I just read in the paper recently there's a new federal program. It's called Build Canada, and have we looked at this for housing or infrastructure? And the other thing with the change in the federal government, I think if some of the promises that were made in the election are kept, we will see a new influx of money to CMHC into housing. So I really think city staff should be keeping an eye on any grants or new programs that are coming around, because even if we're not going to be doing it, we can feed the information to some group like Joy's talked about, the New Shepherd Group and things like this, so they are aware of it and they can apply for these grants and new programs as soon as they come out, and we're not in the back of the crowd, but maybe in the front to begin with, because we've been talking about this long enough, and it would be really nice to see some new blood and new money come into it. So I really think that if there's this one program's already there, and I'm assuming it's going to transition the election because it's already started and the money's been earmarked for it. And I believe if the new programs are coming out, we should be trying to stay on top of them, like a lot of other communities will be too, and trying to find out what and if we have to do to get these involved in them.
Yeah, and the Build Canada Fund has been around for a while now, and that is we apply for every grant we possibly can, and we have someone who actually is looking actively for all types of grants. I think the issue for us is that traditionally we're not a housing organization, right? So we don't seek those grants out on an active basis, but it's not something we can definitely be looking at, as well as seeing if we can find those grants, and if there is a group in town like this who wants, we can direct them and help assist that process. Absolutely. Councillor Niche?
Just something a little further to Councillor Thorkelson's talk about talking to developers when they come to town. And the other thing that, is an option too is, maybe a certain development, maybe a developer doesn't want to put a certain type of housing in their development, but what they can do is they can pay towards an affordable housing fund, which in lieu of not building units in their space, they can pay towards a fund which then would be distributed to housing authorities, or and I think maybe our city staff should maybe look into that and what other communities have done for their bylaws to make that happen also, because that's probably something that, for example, the one development on the waterfront that was discussed in previous council meetings and that was brought up, maybe there's an option there for they would be willing to put in towards affordable housing in other areas too, and pay into that. So I think we should be looking a little bit forward to that and see what other communities are doing for those policies.
Councillor Moore, you have some information on that?
I just wanted to refresh our memories. We did commission Urban Systems to do that analysis for us, and we did get a draft report I can forward it on to you guys. We got it via email, but it had kind of a suite of policy options that are available to us, but there was still a little bit of analysis that was required before they came and gave us a final presentation. But it was about a 15-page document. I'll make sure to turn it up. But it did offer that suite of policy options like you're talking about, Councillor Niche, that could be very relevant to our particular context, because there's not one solution fits everyone. We've got to kind of make a made in Prince Rupert solution, and that report goes a long way to addressing that. So as soon as we get our next workshop together to discuss those policy options, we'll be able to flesh out all of those details.
Councillor Thurgood.
Urban Systems also did one for Terrace, and they also did one for Kitimat, and I don't know if they've done one from Smithers, but I think they've probably done the Northern Tour. So the Terrace and Kitimat one are similar, but they do offer a few different policy options. But there's only so many things you can do, right? So it's just so many ways you can package an item, right? So, I think it's a good idea, but I looked at, it's probably going to be a long time for $5,000 contributions to build up to anything that's going to look like a building. That's part of that's part of it. I believe Councillor Cunningham's right. It's going to be this next new federal government, if they are going to make a decision to put money into affordable housing, and we need to be on the ball and keep an eye on that if that goes ahead. I think that's the case. That Build Canada is for infrastructure, like for our dam and for the sewer system and that kind of thing, but it's not for affordable housing. At least I haven't seen anything on all of the announcements that they've made to have that building fund for affordable housing. It seems to mostly be for city infrastructure issues, not housing. So anyway, I think that the urban systems idea is a good idea. Let's have a look at it. And we really know, Terrace and Kitimat will probably have the largest fund. Terrace might have will have a fairly larger fund, but I don't think in either case they've been able to use that as seed money yet, because it's just not large enough. And Kitimat did it too late, I think, is maybe if they'd done it at the beginning when their Alcan camp was built or something like that, maybe they'd have a bit more money. But it doesn't seem, from what I saw in that urban systems thing, that they'd be actually getting a lot of money. So anyway, I think we should look at everything we can, Wade, and you're absolutely right. If we couldn't talk a developer into doing that, that's the next best item. What I would really hoping to see is some kind of buy-in that says that either so many apartments in each building, so many would have to be subsidized or cross-subsidized by the other tenants. So anyway.
Okay, so we'll move on to the reports, questions, and queries from members of council. Councillor Kelly?
Last Recreation Commission, we were asked to look into extending bus hours to increase the capacity of community access to facilities and things like that. And it was going to be passed on to Rory to look into.
Oh yeah, the secretary from there, I believe, may have passed you that. I'm not sure if you received that or not. It doesn't seem like you did. So we wanted to explore increasing transit hours past, I believe it's just 6 o'clock we go till now, and maybe making it a little bit later so that people can actually access the civic center and maybe the main areas of the community, and maybe how much that would cost and what that would look like to have more nighttime service. And so it's something maybe we can get staff to look into. Thank you. Other questions, comments from council? Councillor Randhawa?
Yeah, we are working on sidewalks, but one crosswalk by 7th Street and 3rd Avenue need to be get done soon. It's really hazard.
7th and 3rd?
7th Street and 3rd Avenue by old KFC building.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that need to be looked into.
Okay, I think we'll make our way down the line as well to those. Those will be replaced, correct, Corinne? Right down to 8th, right? Okay. Other comments, questions from?
I just wanted to just say how wonderful it was to participate in the misjudged pageant on the last weekend for the transition house, and I'd like to say that we did a great job, and $35,000 was raised towards that, and I think that's a record breaker, and I'm going to push as many people to get into that next time in 2 years when it happens again, and who knows, maybe it'll be an all-stars weekend.
And if anybody would like to see Councillor Nish in a bikini, just go to the North Coast Transition Facebook page, and you'll be able to witness that.
Wear your sunglasses.
Okay, any
Maybe
final
blinders.
any final comments from council? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Kinney, second by Councillor Moreau. All those in favor? Okay, meeting's adjourned.